Today on 7 Days, 7 Dimensions, we're going to tackle the most easily measurable dimension of the voice, intonation, which has to do with being on pitch, but intonation isn't just about producing an intended note, it's also about being able to accurately go from one pitch to another. And we do this by coordinating specific muscles of the larynx in charge of positioning and stretching the vocal folds against the airflow in order to create consistent speeds of vibration, which you talked a little bit about on day one. And to help us target these muscles is Riley Roth. Riley is a singer-songwriter who originally signed a deal with hit songwriter Busby and BMG in 2018, which later evolved into her becoming the very first signed artist to Altadena, a record label company partnered with Warner Chappell. After just a few years of honing her songwriting skills, she released her first EP in September of 2022 and has accrued millions of views on social media with 8 million plays on Spotify with over 300,000 monthly listeners. Having to co-write with other songwriters and record new melodies on near daily basis makes Riley a fantastic guest for today's lesson on intonation. Riley, how are you?
Hi, I'm so good. How are you?
I am excellent. I'm so excited to have you here. And I want to actually bring a little bit of context as to how we know each other.
Oh, yeah.
I had to look this up. You took your first voice lesson. Do you remember what year it was?
Oh my gosh, was I 12 when we met?
2011.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
It was
And now
little
I'm
Riley.
23, so little math.
Well,
yeah.
you're always tall, relatively little Riley, right?
Right, but young. We go way back.
If we do. So we started with lessons online, and then occasionally you would visit up to my studio in New York because you're originally from Pennsylvania, now living in Nashville. And so this is really cool to kind of reconnect with you a little bit for today's topic. We're going to take on maybe an exercise or two a little different than what we've done in the past. But I want to start by asking you a question because you are in the daily grind of songwriting, right?
Yes.
So you're having to use your voice day after day, create new melodies, learn new melodies, maybe another songwriter came up with, and you have to record it, go back and relearn it. So you've this constant cycle, right? In today's modern era of autotune, how necessary and how important is this particular dimension for you in your life?
I am a perfectionist, so I like to be as on pitch as possible. And sometimes that's crushing it and it's a one take thing. And other days, depending on how my voice is, that's multiple takes to get it. But I try to get it naturally as close as possible. Auto-tune is nice because it can kind of nudge you up or down a bit. But I kind of like to use it to embellish.
It's become a new standard, though.
It has.
Right? To use it to some level. And there's Melodyne and some other ways to use the software. There's, like you said, like a little nudge. Yeah. Because there's an expectation to our ears as listeners on pop radio and country that is, like you said, near perfect. But the problem is when we use software to modify the sound, we get something called digital artifacts.
Totally.
And that can be, I can see your facial expression is, I don't like that sound.
No, I don't.
So, but it can be used artistically too, right? There's lots of artists that will lean on that to kind of give it like that digital effect, almost like a synthesizer kind of effect. And I have no problem with that. It's just, it's using this instrument combined with another technology to create something new. And that's art, right? It's not a right or wrong as far as that goes. But if you want to stay true to your original tone, the less you use the software, the more authentic the sound will become. And so that's really how I see the value relative to the style of music that you want to sing.
Definitely.
And I was thinking you'd be good for this particular dimension because you take on new melodies constantly. It's like your short-term memory must be amazing at this point. How's your long-term memory for melodies?
Right. I actually think it's easier to remember a melody for me if I actually like step away from it and come back versus like writing the song and then hopping on the microphone right away. But the more that I've done that, the easier it has been to become more accurate. But when I first started coming to Nashville and all these new melodies were thrown at me daily, I was having a hard time being able to kind of translate that from the writing space to on the microphone and like really accurately remember everything.
Yeah, because if you create the melody yourself, intuitively you go from one pitch to another in a way
Right.
just creatively that came from you. But if it's someone else's idea, that's where the challenge starts to come. Or if it's your idea that you practiced 1,000 times,
Yes.
then the producer's like, what if we change just that note? And your brain
Yep.
breaks, right? Because it's
It's
like,
battling
no, it's
instinct.
supposed to be done this way.
Totally.
And
So,
so it's a really common scenario. So, real quick, when we sing in tune, I mentioned this on day one, where our vocal folds would match the speed of vibration
mhm.
with our intended pitch, right? So, if I'm playing A220 on the piano, if you were to hum this back, when you match that pitch, your folds are vibrating at exactly that speed. So, we talked about that a little bit. But today isn't just about getting your vocal folds to vibrate at one speed. It's being able to go from here to here to here to here. I mean, whatever the melody is, this I don't recommend this particular melody. I don't really know what I'm playing, or it's super jazzy.
Right.
But we want to get, kind of systematically being able to adjust from one pitch to another. And before we begin, I want to point out that the vocal folds are really tiny.
Mhm.
Okay. They're literally smaller than your eyelids. They're like a half inch to 3/4 of an inch. And I think it's really valuable that we take a moment to appreciate how small the vocal folds are in the larynx, because when we go from this pitch and we jump up, let's say a fifth, right? Your vocal folds are going to stretch from here to here. Like I barely moved it's like tiny little adjustments. But when we sing, sometimes we feel like we have to put a lot of effort into making that pitch change.
Right.
And that's the benefit of going into the vocal gym and working on that coordination and some of the behaviors of the muscles. So that's why I wanted to take some time to do this. So I'm going to introduce you to a pattern. Bring up my piano here. So we're going to actually, do you have maybe a little something to write on or a phone nearby to like just use notes or something like
Yeah,
that?
I can get my phone.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to have you write down what the pattern is, and I
Okay.
recommend everybody at home doing this as well. So it's going to be 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1. Now I find when learning, you're like, I don't know about this scale. If we take on a typical scale, we might do kind of like 5 sequential in notes within like a major scale, right? So very often we'll go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That
Right.
tends to be easier, and that's usually where we start learning melodies in the first place. Those are our nursery rhymes. So all the notes are like tucked together and there's not any big jumps. That makes it easier for the brain to process and learn new melodies, and that's great. But over time, we want to advance the skill. So if we're always just doing something like this,
Right.
it's a good practice. You're warming up, but you're not really challenging yourself in terms of learning something new and just trying to stay on that. What phrase do I want to use here? Just on the sonic edge, if you will, of melodic phrasing that may inspire something even within your own songs when you're writing. So if
Totally.
you're practicing new combinations, it's kind of cool. So typically we would go from the root note first. We go up whole step, half step, whole step. In this pattern that you just wrote down, we're going from 1 to the major third. Then we're coming down a whole step. Then we're going up a minor third. Then we go down a half step. Then we go up another minor third. And then we do the whole dance in reverse. So these are really commonly used intervals within minor and major songs, right? The major third, minor third, half step, and whole step. So these are really good to take on. So we're going to start by using the actual numbers as lyrics, because that makes it a lot easier for the brain to kind of remember and take on something new. So it sounds like this. 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1. So I'm going to do a couple times. Go ahead and join me on this. 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1. Breathe in. 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 3, Try it on your own.
1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 3, 4, 2, 1.
And I'm going to have you try it completely on your own if you can indulge us with a little a cappella action.
1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1.
Perfect. So as soon as you get the new pattern down, there's new things you can do with it. We can speed it up. We can add or modulate the tempo a little bit, and also replace the numbers once you really trust it with something else that might be more functional. Okay, let's do a couple more times with the numbers. I recommend everybody to join us. By the way, if this is too high for you, by all means, for those watching, join us down here. Find a place that's comfortable for your voice. Let's try it again. Here we go.
1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 4, 2, 3, 1.
Breathe in.
1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1.
One more time together. 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 3, 4, 2, 1. Good. Now, Riley, I'm going to ask you to try a G version of this. So it's a GE sound. I always prefer the tip of the tongue forward, as you know. You're going to see this reoccurring throughout these 7 days. I like the tongue forward for lots of reasons, particularly with pitch, because the tongue has a tendency to kind of pull back and adjust with the intention of helping the voice, because when the tongue pulls back, it modifies the back pressure, and that makes it a little bit easier to control the pitch or the tension at the folds. So sometimes we use the tongue or the jaw or even the lips to help steer the pitch, and we want to avoid that. We want the pitch to be independent of all of these muscles that we're going to use for tone and for diction that we're going to discuss on later days. So a G, tip of the tongue forward, here we go. Good, and on your own, please. You got it. Excellent. Speed it up just a little bit. Let's try like the speed. Try that. Yes, and again. Cool. Even faster. Good. Now I notice you did something that's super common. We as singers do. Ooh, so you caught something else too.
Oh, okay.
So you made, yeah. So let's talk that first. So Riley's worked with me before, so she knows the Throga guidelines, the vocal gym rules, where part of the objective here is to keep our mindset in the vocal gym, which means not performing, and that includes eyebrows. Sometimes we get our eyebrows get away from us, like if we're thinking up and down. These muscles have nothing to do with pitch, but they can interfere sometimes. If the pitch is going up and we're thinking up, these muscles hit a limit. They can't go any higher, and that sometimes sends the signal back to the brain that says, oh, we can't go any higher. It actually limits the responsiveness that we want from the folds, which are stretching from front to back. There's no up or down at all in those moments, right? So there's that. So you look bored out of your mind, which is exactly the way you should look. But also, when I said let's speed up, you took a bigger breath.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but if we're going faster, it's actually shorter,
right?
So you need less air, but there's that feeling of like, here we go, right? There's that anticipatory, exactly. There's a response there. So just keep it light.
Okay.
Breathe in through the nose. Let's try that again. Good. Even quicker. I know I came back down a pitch here. A little faster. Yeah.
Oh, I did a big breath again. Okay.
Beautiful. Just a few more. Good. Again, any octave. Last one. Now, you may have heard a couple little slides take place there.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting with the G, not only are we addressing the tongue, we're also stopping the airflow for a fraction of a second. So if this was continuous, that was legato, the folds would have to vibrate at a certain speed and then quickly speed up and then down to another one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is great practice for intonation. But with the G, the sound where we trap the air for a second, the folds have to stop vibrating completely for a fraction of a second. So you're going from however many cycles a second this is, 280 or something like that. And then it goes to 0 on the G, then it has to speed up, then it goes to 0 on the G again, then it has to come down just a little bit. So it's a lot of dancing back and forth in terms of tension of the folds. So that makes it a little bit trickier. You can hear if like, ooh, I slid up into that one or I didn't. And this happens to be in your passaggio, which is a space that's more complicated to control, at least at this volume, right? Mm-hmm. Between chest voice and head voice, that made it even trickier. So I love that you were being vulnerable enough to allow us to hear it, because I know you can sing it. You could be like, like you can like lock it into place. Don't do what I just did where I went overshot and I went sharp. But I know you can do that. So staying in the training mindset is essential to actually improving. Mm-hmm. You have to hear where the imbalances are or you can't get better. You just get good at masking it. You can already cheat in the song. This is not the place to cheat, right?
Right.
So speaking of song, why don't we grab the guitar? Is that nearby? I know you have a piano there too.
I do. I have it right here.
Oh, great. So let's take one of your originals, if you don't mind, and let's try the Gi with it. So no lyrics, there's no storytelling for a moment. Okay. It's just straight up melody with Gi, and you're going to try to do this where there's no sliding into the pitches.
Okay. Do you want the verse or the chorus?
Let's start with the verse.
Okay. It's going to be hard to translate.
It's going to be weird.
Gis. Okay. Oh, I need to put my tongue forward.
No, you're fine. It's the hardest thing to do because everything in your brain says, I'm playing guitar. This is a song. You're thinking the words at the time you want to perform it.
I am.
So it's easy to go gee, 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 like, because that stylistically, that's how you would deliver it.
Right. Okay.
So let's actually modify this a little bit so we can really hear the distinction. Mm-hmm. We're going to use the H. We talked about H's yesterday on day 2 for breathing, but same thing. The H, the folds have to stop vibrating. And it's even a little bit trickier because you're spending air, folds completely stop, then they start on the next pitch, completely stop, start on the next pitch. But it's more defined, so you can really kind of hear what's taking place. So give that a try.
And no scoops, right?
We are scoop-free zone right now.
Okay.
How boring can you make your song? Yeah. That is the task at hand.
Okay, here we go. Okay, wait, let me try it one more time.
Nice. And that was really good because all those little H's, like I heard them all, and that's what we want. So you're spending your air evenly. It kind of makes it nice in terms of tackling breathing as a dimension as well.
Right.
But the precision here is great. And this could be used for riffs too. So if you're like, right, there's like a really quick little moment. Mm-hmm. It helps you define, I'm going to this pitch, this pitch, this pitch. It gives you a moment to kind of reconnect to the actual melody that you wrote. Mm-hmm. You're on such autopilot mode. Sometimes it's good to kind of like come back and strip it down and be like, what is the melody that I have?
Right. The mechanics of it. Totally.
Exactly. Because the brain just says, here's the song. So here's the words, here's the mouth movement, here's when you breathe. All these things seemingly magically happen that you've just really cultivated over time. Mm-hmm. So to go back to 0 is a really nice way to really reconnect to the song and also help develop the behaviors that you can apply to the next song and the next song and the next song.
Totally.
Okay. So can we try a chorus of this as well?
Yeah. Do you want it with he's?
So yeah, and this would be normally a little bit louder, right?
Yes, definitely.
Cool. So it's a little more air pressure. It's going to be a little bit trickier. Give it a try.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's so easy to want to slide into
I
it,
know.
and
I caught myself
it
scooping.
but that's okay. Can we try a gi version just to compare what that feels like?
Yeah. Gee. Okay. Does it, when doing this exercise with a he or a gi, is the objective to sing it in the same register that you would normally sing the chorus?
Beautiful question. The answer is absolutely not,
Okay.
right?
That's
Because
where I
we
went
are
wrong.
selecting. That's okay. I know you were kind of like, this is supposed to be here because you were kind of aiming for a tone,
Yeah.
right? And I know you might have been thinking more register based, like, okay, this is head voice, this is chest voice,
Right.
but really it's about tone.
Okay.
When the lyrics aren't there, we're no longer trying to tell the story. So you don't need to think in terms of register, or is
Okay.
this breathy, or does this have a clear tone, or does this have an angry sound, a happy sound, whatever.
Right.
But we do still want to select volume, and that's where the challenge is.
Mm.
So if you ran through the chorus at a light volume, it'd be very similar to the verse in terms of challenge.
Okay.
But when we increase the air pressure, now the folds have to work against a greater amount of force. So the coordination becomes more difficult.
Right.
So think volume, but don't get hung up in what register you're in. Let that just kind of be a byproduct
Okay.
of whatever the melody is. Try it again.
I slid up to the note.
Do you hear that? Yeah, you heard it. I know.
So,
But you normally stylize it that way, correct?
yeah, it's hard for me to like shut that part of my brain off because I'm so familiar with like those little scoops and things in the melody.
Yeah, think of it as like playing with the guitar, but it's like a fretted intention, right? So you're not sliding into the note. It's how would you play the melody on the guitar?
I'm still scooping
There
a
we go.
tiny bit, but yeah, that's better.
No, but that was definitely adjusted.
Okay.
And let's try a he again one more time. You're kind of zeroing in on the idea here. And you're feeling the wind too here, right? Just like, how do I coordinate the air to get the end of it?
Right.
Now we can't have the tease of this melody without actually hearing what it's supposed to sound like.
Yeah.
So if you can bring the lyrics back in and have a little fun with this, this is Stranger, right?
Yeah.
I do recognize the melody.
It is.
Can you sing verse chorus for us?
Yeah.
Awesome.
You were just a friend of a friend of a friend at a party. Only knew your name cause you wrote it in Sharpie on your cup, getting drunk on Bacardi at somebody's brother's apartment. Only noticed we were on the same couch cause you sang the wrong words way too loud to my favorite song, so I called you out. Who would have known it would start with 3 drinks at 2 a.m. One, hey, nice to meet you, saying what you got going on later. How were you ever a stranger? 3 words we said too fast. You were just someone 1 month back. Now loving you second nature. How were you ever a stranger?
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank
so you can hear the movement. You know, when you do an exercise like this, initially where we're doing the he's and the gees, and we're like, plunking out the notes and exactly what they are. When you add the lyric back in, there's so much more forgiveness in terms of the precision of the note.
Totally.
And not because you were aiming for that per se, but because we don't want it to sound robotic. We want that organic quality. This is a keyless, fretless instrument.
Right.
It's super complex in adjusting everything. So the uniqueness of those little micro slides is part of what makes it like feel like it's flowing. So it's really important that we have that. So I love that you've got that mixed in a very organic way. Thanks. But can you also see when you strip it down to just the melody, how it forces you to think about it differently?
It does. Yeah, for sure. Sometimes, not in this song, but sometimes I find myself using scoops as a bit of a crutch. So stripping it back to the he's and gees help. In this song, it's a stylistic thing. Like you said, you don't really always want it to sound robotic. But yeah, that's why I like to go back.
No, but I love that you brought that up. Whenever you take on a song, you try this exercise, it can be super humbling.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, I know where that note is. Why was that difficult to get to? There's two reasons. One, it just may sit in a certain spot in your range based on how warmed up you are, how you're feeling that day. The conditioning of your voice always plays a role. But also, you've literally practiced that song how many times with the scoops, and so that just becomes how you sing that piece.
Right.
So the challenge is, can you work through your songs or a set of songs scoopless?
Yeah.
And you will discover very quickly the parts that you just pointed out that you may be using as a crutch, not realizing, wait, is that what's best for the song? That's really what we want to ask ourselves. Is that slide benefit the song? Does it help me tell the story?
Totally.
If it does, or in the very least, if it doesn't interfere with the storytelling, great, leave it where it is, right? But discovering if it's an actual choice or not is a super humbling process. For me, it was vibrato. So I used to, my influences in musical theater and things like that, and Meatloaf, this big fat vibrato kind of thing that I used to love to sing with. So it wasn't until my mid-20s when I was asked to sing a song. I can't remember what it was. I think it was a crooning song, like Frank Sinatra or something. And it was like, hey, let's try a pass with no vibrato. I'm thinking, no problem, I'll just take that away.
Yep.
It was not pretty. It was not pretty. It's like, where's the note?
Right.
It was such a masking tool, and it was embarrassing at the moment because it was like on the spot, and realizing how little coordination I had for this particular dimension, because I just covered it. Because vibrato, if you think about it, if I were to take like a piece of paper, and this is something we often don't think about, if this was like the pitch, right? Let's say that's the note that we wanted, okay? Being right on pitch, you would match that speed of vibration, right? So it'd be or whatever it is. But vibrato is when you actually intentionally go a little sharp, then intentionally flat, intentionally sharp, intentionally flat. So the illusion is that you're on key. So it's so you're actually touch and go. You're barely on key at all.
Yeah.
So I used vibrato for years to just cover up the pitch. And it was a very humbling process when I was asked to remove it. That's why to this day, I'm still much better at musical theater than pop for that exact reason. It's my weakest link. I'm the first to admit. Let's just take on one other one. I'm just going to stay in this pocket of 5 notes, because these are just the most common. So if we start on the 1, this one you don't have to write down. I think you'll memorize it quick. We're literally just going to bounce back and forth from the 1. So it's 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. So here we're practicing. Here's the whole step. Here's the major third. Here's the 4th. Here's the 5th. So let's try this. So with the numbers, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. Breathe in. Same thing. 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. Let's try the gi. And you're listening for that. If there is a slide, you want to make it adjust. I don't know if you did. I'm just saying, listen for it.
Okay.
Give it a try. Breathe in. One more like this. Yeah, so that's the idea. Now let's speed it up, because the other part of challenging intonation is, once you get the coordination down, is to be able to do it quickly, right? That helps us learn melodies faster, and of course, then you've got like riffs and things like that benefits. So we're going to try this tempo. Here we go. Breathe in. Breathe in, tiny bit of air. You don't need much. One more. Good. And again, if you're joining us, I was focused on Riley, but of course you can come down into a lower octave. And we have an MP3 for all of these lessons, so you can download this actual scale, or even maybe I'll put some modified versions of it, so you can practice along with and explore your whole range. We're just kind of sitting in a pocket right here, but by all means, explore your entire range. I think that's really valuable as well. Do you have any questions for me today?
So usually when I warm up before going to my songwriting sessions, I'll do some glissandos in the car, some vocal fries, like basic, just kind of bringing my voice to life for the day. How often should I be incorporating these intonation exercises as part of my warm up, and can I include that as a warm up and not just kind of like an exercise to improve in one area?
Yes, you can. In fact, we talked about this a little bit on day one for flexibility. So if you're on the way to a gig or whatever, like songwriting session, if there's certain songs or melodies that you want to work through, you could use the lip trill, tongue roll, or even just hum along with it. Just move through the melody with the back pressure. Okay. That way the folds are stretching. But for you, working with intonation in mind, remove the scoops. Right. Don't stylize it, right? Okay. And we shouldn't be stylizing it anyway when the lyrics aren't there, but think more precision in terms of like playing the notes on the guitar or playing the notes on the piano.
Right. Okay.
And so the G is good for that. The H is going to be more fatiguing.
Okay, yeah.
So I wouldn't warm up with the H because the folds have to kind of stiffen into a certain position and that'll fatigue it a little bit. So not a great initial warm up. I would definitely stick with the G's or just stick with the legato M or oo sound, working through the melodies as precise as you can.
Okay. And should glissandos and like lighter exercises, I guess, be performed before switching to intonation?
Yeah, you can still do all the glissando. I'm not saying it doesn't have to be in place of, but if you kind of want to double up on, I need to warm up, but I also want to work on this dimension.
Right.
Do less glissandos and more scale-based work.
Okay. That makes total sense.
Because then you're warming up with complicated things. And you can do like, bigger jumps, like 1, 3, 5, 8, things like that, that will still stretch the folds more than these closer intervals are.
Right.
And that way you're warming up and you're practicing all that at the same time. Ooh, here's another one actually. A good warm-up to practice intonation is to play with harmonies to songs that don't normally have harmonies.
Ooh, that
so
sounds
you
fun.
can literally just put on a playlist of any songs that you know well, know the lyric, know the melody, and particularly with the verses, because there's usually not many harmonies there, if any, and practice finding notes that go with it.
Fun.
And you can just even hum this. So you're actively warming up and working on intonation at the same time. That's a great kind of discovery path to intonation as well.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I'm definitely going to give that a try.
So Riley, thank you for hanging with us today and for sharing your voice.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone else watching this. To learn more about Riley and her music, please visit RileyRoth.com. And don't forget to check out the lesson summary link in the description below to make sure you don't miss any of the 7 days of lessons and to download your free MP3s for practice. Finally, please feel free to post any questions you have about today's lesson or the voice in general. We are here for you, and I will be more than happy to personally answer your questions. Keep singing.